Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live stream. Today's broadcast will be slightly different from what I've ordinarily been doing, in that I will be honoring the life and work of an Austrian-American composer by the name of Walter Arlen, who just turned 100 years of age yesterday. And talking with him on the phone this morning, he has not lost a speck of his wonderful old Viennese dialect and charm. With this kind of optimism and energetic positivity, Walter Arlen has been a deep influence on my music making as I know it today, and continues to be a source of inspiration. Walter Arlen was born in 1920 in Vienna, Austria, where his grandfather owned a department store. And he was brought up with that rich Viennese culture of Otto Wagner in architecture, Sigmund Freud, Gustav Klimt, the electrifying operas of Richard Strauss, and more importantly, the intimacy of songwriting and the house music culture, very much brought about by Franz Schubert many generations earlier. And Walter Arlen jokes to this day about having to dress up as Franz Schubert for a class play. However, Walter Arlen's dreams were shattered as a young 17-year-old when in 1938 the Nazis had stormed into the city and taken over. Soon after, his father was imprisoned, grandfather murdered in Treblinka, mother committed suicide. A tragic tale, and Walter fortunately was able to flee. Just a day before his visa was set to expire, he boarded a train for Trieste and sailed over to New York and has lived in the US ever since. I thought, what better way to kick off this Saturday stream than to honor his life and work. And his surname, actually, Arlen, is not his birth surname. He was born Walter Aptowitzer, and when he came to America, he fell in love with the songwriting of Harold Arlen, who wrote the music to Wizard of Oz, and decided to take his last name. So there we have it. We have Walter Arlen. He worked as a furrier in Chicago while taking music lessons, and eventually settled in Southern California and got a job both as a piano teacher and as a music critic. What makes this story so interesting that I've uncovered in so much of my research of other exiled composers is a kind of quiet shame and embarrassment to show one's work, sort of practicing silence, as many Jews call it. But more so, Walter was in touch with so many luminaries of the 20th century, and he had reviewed the concert and engaged in intellectual discussions with composers such as Igor Stravinsky or Darius Milhaud, Maria Castelnuovo Tedesco. Yet he was too embarrassed to show his music, and it wasn't until about the age of 80 that he finally showed his music to the world. By the way, I've been composing. And meeting over a coffee in Vienna over 10 years ago was my first encounter, as every first encounter in Vienna is. This was right by the enchanting Stephansdom in the very city center of Vienna. We had a coffee that was supposed to be a short, 15, 30-minute talk to try and qualify me to see if I'm a pianist he could possibly work with, after just telling about 20 other pianists, no thank you. And our discussion just ended up going 2-3 hours. We simply couldn't stop, and I simply couldn't stop listening to the stories and the incredible amount of musical life that this man has experienced. I would like to begin this broadcast with a kind of nostalgic work, a sort of tone poem, very much a kind of song without words in the style of Mendelssohn, perhaps, but very much still a tonal work with elements of impressionism and even occasionally expressionism. And it's called Die letzte Blaue, which simply means the last blue. And this is a work about the last blue disc that was displayed on trams in the early 20th century Vienna. And the last blue disc meant that was the last tram of the day. And you better catch that, otherwise you're walking home. So this little tone poem has a few quotes, and I want to see if you can recognize them. One is very obvious, especially if you've flown Air Austria within the last year. And the other is a Schlager, which anyone from Vienna, from the living, in the 30s or 40s, may be able to recognize. Here it is. So, did anyone catch those quotes? I'm looking through the various comments on different platforms. Of course, the Blue Danube Waltz is is at the very end and in the middle. A couple other little quotes from Johann Strauss, Jules. And at the very end, you saw in the score, there was the marking bye-bye, a goodbye to the beautiful youth, Viennese youth of Walter's imagination. There are elements of German, Austrian music, a beautiful kind of melodic, rhythmic suppleness, and innate sense of comfort all throughout. And I think that kind of comfort is precisely what exiled composers needed. Music is a kind of refuge, a way to escape from all that trauma of the past. And I mentioned at the beginning of this stream that Walter's music is that kind of frozen time capsule. These Schubertian ideals of a song, or in this case, a song without words, an intimate soundscape that allows our imagination to find our sense of home and comfort, which is what makes it so relevant today. Still talking to Walter at the age of 100, he feels like a good friend to me. It's almost hard to feel any generation difference. And that timeless quality persists in his music. Now, a recent interview from Die Zeit, a German newspaper, Walter had confessed that he's never loved the city as much as he has loved Vienna. And I wanted to play a little bit of a trailer, actually, full trailer of a movie, a documentary that was released roughly 2 years ago, which I had the honor to take part in, and the piano music was very aptly provided and used as a soundtrack in so many of the clips. And this trailer trails Walter Arlen's life from his youth and upbringing to the kind of charming Walter Arlen as he is today. Let's play that now.
Ladies and gentlemen, composer Walter Arlen.
I take my hat off to you. I heard you sing from the outside and sounded wonderful.
Thank you. So we're just going to go ahead and keep rehearsing like we were, and when you have anything to say,
I'll say it.
Yeah, good. Good, love that.
And I've often thought, what would have happened if I had gone back to Vienna at that point? Because the department store was there, and I could have walked in and take it over. Im Geschäft waren alle sehr nett und scheißfreundlich, wenn ich so sagen darf. Aber wie sich's gezeigt hat, über Nacht war das halbe Geschäft antisemitisch.
He's never gotten over anything. So I learned his story immediately upon meeting him, but it was never important to me. What was important was his music. That was how I met him.
Die Musik, die Walter Arlen geschrieben hat, war eigentlich Therapie für sich selbst.
Wie ich angefangen habe, habe ich irgendwie auf einmal 5 Lieder in 6 Tagen geschrieben, obwohl ich schon 30 Jahre keine Musik geschrieben habe.
He composed music that only an Austrian composer of his generation in America could have composed.
He asked me if I would like to go to concerts, because he was a critic, had to go to concerts and write reviews. and very often he went by himself.
It was the beginning of a career which lasted 30, 40 years. Ich habe immer gesagt, I'm not interested whom I know, I'm interested who knows me. Der Stravinsky hat mich gekannt. Where's the Besteck?
I have it in my hand.
Oh,
It's a fork, that's it.
let's go to the Wurst. What is that?
Cranberry sauce.
No, it's a Preiselbeeren, Howard. Not cranberry sauce.
Walter's story reminds me very much of another Austrian exiled composer, also hailing from Vienna and also settling in Southern California, and that is Robert Fürstenthal, who once said, "Wenn ich komponiere, bin ich wieder in Wien." I return to Vienna when I compose. And for some people, creativity is a almost secret ingredient that provides them with that eternal, youthful spark permeating their very beings. And Walter Arlen, to this day, has a very special relationship with Vienna and continues to write, even though he's legally blind. He uses a special contraption that his partner had built for him, and it enables him to compose to this very day. And just now, for his 100th birthday, he had written a piano work that was transformed into a 112-instrument virtual orchestra. This work was premiered in the gardens of Augarten in Vienna and displayed on an outdoor screen. Truly a magnificent feat. And I thought this broadcast just wouldn't be complete with at least one song that Walter Arlen had written, considering that at least 2/3 of his output are songs. And what better way to honor this rich Viennese house music tradition than to choose the Song of Songs based on the Songs of Solomon. It's a series of very lyrical poems that are organized in a kind of lengthy dialogue between a young woman and her lover. And today we know Jewish leaders have transformed this by seeing the maiden as a symbol of Israel and by taking Solomon to mean God, while Christians have provided a more classic form of the allegory of God and Christ. Walter goes back to the roots and relies on the source material that was provided by a translation by the 19th century writer, Leroy Waterman. Let's have a listen.
Beautiful shepherdess, and come away, for see, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time for singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in the land. puts forth his fruit, and the vines are in bloom. They diffuse perfume. Arise, my beautiful shepherdess, and come away, come away.
The beauty and mysteries of profound love have inspired artists since the beginning of time. And I wanted to end this live stream by wishing Walter, now that he has accomplished his first 100 years, much more health, peace, and that he continues touching our lives with his wonderful music. And I wanted to end on in a kind of party spirit. This is based on the Schlager that you had heard subtly embedded in the first work I had performed. And that is Wenn die letzte blaue geht, about the blue disc on the last tram of the day in early 20th century Vienna. And this was from a recording session that we did together with Daniel Hope, violinist, and Rebecca Nelson, soprano. We were simply given the score to this it's a ragtime work, bar music, and we had just kind of improvised on it. I added a few glissandi, and eventually this managed to seep its way into the final CD and is still available today on the CD, the commercial CD. So enjoy. This is Wenn die letzte blaue geht.
Wer zu lange schläft, der ist blöd. Einmal kommt die Zeit, ja, wo zum Schluss man leider ewig schlafen muss. Drum, wenn die Spießbürger schlafen gehen, scheint mir erst die Welt wirklich schön. Brauch ich denn die Sonne hold und grün? Mir scheint schon der Mond genügend wenn die letzte blaue geht, erst in die Badegent der Schlaue geht. Die süßen Mädeln sind schon alle drin. Johnny sagt her, Whisky und Gin. In meinem Arm ein blondes Engerlein. Und so 6 sag ich ihm nichts. Jetzt kommt das letzte Fläschchen Wein. Kinder gehören ins Bett. Kinder, für mich ist das eine klar. Mittelpunkt der Welt ist die Bar, weil sich dort Gesang und Weib und Wein Gesetz zum fröhlichen Verein. Wie die Sonne sich der Planet schließlich sich mich alles dreht und so bei der 10. Flasche singt, hab ich manchen neuen Stern entdeckt. Wenn die letzte blaue geht, erst in die Badegent der Schlaue geht, die süßen Mädeln sind schon alle drin. Johnny sagt Whisky und Gin, in meinem Arm ein blondes Engellein. jetzt kommt das